Numbers never lie, but people do. And I like numbers. I think they're a really cool way to tell stories and make predictions too. And so I think there are three very important statistics that will decide Alabama hosting Georgia on Saturday. Bama, home dog for the first time since 2007. And for Georgia, it's, well, for both sides. Big time game, obviously. Kalen DeBoer, first real big test at Alabama. Georgia, the last time they lost in conference play was in 2020 to Alabama. And I think the numbers that will decide the game aren't necessarily the fact that Georgia is 17-17 all time when College Game Day is on location, which I think is a fun stat. Tell your friends, 17-17. That's wild that they are 500 exactly, or that Kirby Smart is 1-5 versus Alabama all time and 0-1 in Tuscaloosa, or that Kalen DeBoer is 12-12 in games that their opponent is ranked in the top 25. He lost the first one as a head coach against Fresno State, won 12 in a row, and then lost the last one against Michigan in the national championship game. Those are all fun stats, but when push comes to shove, I think there are three stats that will decide who wins this big-time matchup here early in the college football season. Three stats. And before I get into those stats, I think it's real easy sometimes to overcomplicate things. To say, like, it is who can have the highest passing percentage on 3rd and long against a 3-4 defense. You know, those baseball stats. It's like, well, actually, against on Tuesday nights against left-handed hitters under the lights on natural surfaces. When you get two big-time heavyweight fighters going mano-a-mano, and it's shot versus shot, I think the game actually gets simpler. It's less complex on what's going to decide who wins and who loses. So the very first thing is the turnover battle. Georgia is +3 on the season, which is somewhat shocking because they haven't given up a touchdown. They haven't given up a touchdown through 3 games. Haven't let one up. And yet, when you think of the Georgia defense, especially from the last couple of years, they are turnover machines. They are 3-and-out machines, and they have not gotten a bunch of turnovers this year. And Alabama is even in turnover margin. They are at 0. They've lost 4 fumbles, and I think that's a big deal in a game against an opponent like that. So I think the very first stat to look at, and if you don't watch the game on Saturday and you just put a blindfold on all day, and then you pull up the stat sheet after the game and look at it and are trying to decipher outside of points who won and who lost, I think it's real tough for the team who loses the turnover battle to win that game on Saturday. And I know that is like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Whoever doesn't turn the ball over is probably going to win. But I'm here to tell you that I think when you get heavyweight versus heavyweight, things get simplified rather than things get more complex. I used to cover like the state wrestling tournament for high school wrestlers. And you would have all these wrestlers that you see their seeds, like they would win a match 14-2. Well, one got state championship game, state championship match, they won 2-1. Or in baseball, you would see like through the high school ranks, like the first round, somebody would win 20-0. You get to the state championship game, somebody wins 1-0 because the other team is just as good as you are. There is not a gigantic advantage, and it comes down to the little details. And so I think turnover margin is a big one. Playing off of that, points off turnovers is probably even bigger because you can excuse an errant throw or a tipped pass or an ill-timed fumble if your defense has the ability to get off the field on a 3-and-out. There is not a bigger momentum killer than getting an INT in like really good field position, whether it's on your opponent's side of the field or your own 43-yard line. and you incomplete 3 passes and you got to punt. There is not a bigger momentum killer than that. So if your defense can bail you out once, it's a big deal. Right now, through the season, Alabama has put 28 points up off of turnovers. Their opponents have put 0 points up off of turnovers. Georgia, 14 points off of turnovers. Their opponents, 0 points off of turnovers. Can somebody break the other team's streak? Can you get points on the board after a turnover? Because those are the plays that start that momentum snowball rolling down a hill. And if you can get an INT and you can score on the next play or 2 plays later and get either the home crowd quieted or the home crowd frenzied, goes a long way. Because I don't think you are bound to see a high-scoring, high-wire act where it's going to be a shootout coming down to whoever's going to have the ball last, and whoever gets that ball wins 45-41. I don't think you're about to see that. I think it is you have to make the other team pay for their mistakes because there's not going to be many opportunities. And so if somebody does make a mistake, can you capitalize on it, turn it into points for yourself? Because that's going to be the difference in the game. And then the third and final stat that I think plays a huge role in deciding who wins and who loses is the red zone. And not converting in the red zone, converting touchdowns in the red zone, because the other defense is going to make you work your tail off to get in position to win, to get into position to score. So if you can get inside the 20-yard line, you have to turn it into points, preferably turn it into 7 points instead of 3. Georgia is 12 of 12 in the red zone with 11 touchdowns. They have been insanely efficient. And it's easy to say, yeah, but again, they ain't played nobody, Paul. Clemson's pretty good. And I should probably talk about the Tigers at some point because I did not give them their due to start the season, and they have played pretty well. Georgia's 11 of 12 in touchdowns and 12 of 12 total inside the red zone. Alabama's 9 for 11 with 9 touchdowns. Georgia has not given up a touchdown all season, as I mentioned, and they are 3 of 4 defensively in the red zone, and all 3 of them, obviously, field goals. Alabama has been a little worse in the red zone, 5 of 7 with 2 touchdowns. When 5 of 7, your opponent kicking 3 field goals and scoring 2 touchdowns is worse in the red zone, it shows and highlights how good Georgia is and has been in that category. But if you work your way down the field, or you're able to capitalize off of a turnover to make a short field, you have to convert those opportunities. Obviously, Georgia, 12 of 12, has done a better job of it through the first couple of weeks of the season than Alabama has. Does that stay and maintain on Saturday? We'll find out. But those, to me, I'm not going to pick a winner because I think it's too close, and hell, I don't know. I don't know. It's part of the fun. I don't want to sit there and be a miserable bastard on Saturday because, well, I picked Alabama to win. They're not gonna. I want to be entertained. I want to watch good, high-quality, interesting football. So I don't want to sit there. That's why I don't play fantasy football. I don't want to sit there and be pissed because I need Travis Kelce to not be a fat 34-year-old man. I need you to get 9 catches. So I don't play fantasy football. I don't want to make a prediction on Georgia, Alabama, because I want to be entertained. I want to sit there and I want to watch and sit there on the edge of my seat instead of, well, I thought Alabama's going to win. I want Georgia to win. So I'm not going to pick a winner. But I think those are the 3 stats that decide who wins and who loses on Saturday. Before we go today, I need to do a mea culpa. Yesterday, in the video, I talked about UNLV and their NIL issues. I had said running back Michael Allen had said he was leaving the program because his NIL opportunities hadn't come through like he was promised. That wasn't exactly the case. By the time I had recorded the video, he had said that the obligations to him were not met. I assumed that meant his NIL obligations. He then clarified and said, no, I just was promised more playing time. I'm not getting it. So his wasn't an NIL deal, but Matthew Sluka, the quarterback's, was. I think it's important to admit when you're wrong. So I was wrong. I made an assumption. And you know what happens when you assume? So that's on me. So I think it's important to say, hey, I got that wrong. And I got it wrong. But that's a look at Alabama, Georgia. Looking forward to a great college football game on Saturday. I know you are too. We'll be back on Sunday to recap the entire week of college football, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you about it. What do you think happens at Tuscaloosa Saturday night? I want to know your score predictions because I'm not going to make a prediction, but I want you to make a prediction. Drop them in the comments below. Let me know who you think gets the big time win on Saturday. Drop them in the comments. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you Sunday for another episode of the Daily Huddle.